podcast. O Dr Ka Mulipola. O le polokalame muamua lenei, o le season 3 polokalame tolu, o le whaungangana podcast. O le autū o le season 3. O loo ia I tātou lava I le tātou tū ma le aganu'u. Auala soifua manuia I le tino, anganga ma le mafaufau o le tangata, po o le culture is the medicine. O le polokalame lenei, ua mawhaatasi ai ma Fuimaono Dr Karl Pulotu Endemann. O ia o le tausi soifua Samoa muamua, sa galue I tonu o le mental health I New Zealand. O ia sa fausia le Fonofale Model. O loo whaonga I tonu o le matagaluega le soifua maloloina I New Zealand. Ai mai se lava I tonu o le mental health. Usi mai loa lau whaafonga. Ia, malo le soifua Fuimaono whaapetai lava le whaavanoa ina o lou taimita ua tate talanoa ai le whaungangana podcast. E tā ua mama walunga lenei polokalame, ona ua mawhai ona whaavanoa ina mai lou taimita te talanoa ai. Ona e ala na mawalunga, e le ngata o le pioneer o le Pacific nursing I nei New Zealand. Ia e whaapea fo ia le mental health nursing o le tausi soifua mua Samoa na e asaina le ngasu o le taitai aupe o lea upu I nei New Zealand I le mental health nursing. Ia o e fo ina e developinga le first Pacific health model I nei New Zealand. Le olo o whaonga ina I tono le soifua maloloina. Ia ma o e fo o e maua le whailonga taualoa ia po le Queen's Medal mo lau tautua I tono le tato community. Ia me leo te whaatalo whaloa ia tu e lau fionga. Ia aele I amatale ta polokalame. Ia e watu lenei avanoa e whailoa mai fo ilo wa fionga I le mamalu le tato au whafonga ia e whapea fo ia I lato o lo mwhai ona mai mo mai le ta polokalame lenei aso.
Alo, lava soifua. Whaftai lava mo le avangoa, lau sunga le fo mai, Dr Mulipola. Whaftai fo I le ngai keimi mali avangoa mo le kwei ia. Si aloa fa ia ma greetings fo ngale le malu pa I o leo o Samoa leo la. Kukang mai lau pokalama, pa lo keimi ngai whafkai lava ngai avangoa. Ioana, it's great to see you. Ia mo le si I kunga ki whaafturoa kwa o isi keimi vave akula whaaparangi sa Samoa. Because what we ngot sau we living ka ngin sila fo ngot sau le lima viva. I was just about 8 when I came. I turned 9 when in sila. So we're living ka ngin sila. But what we are through and through, what we love o Samoa lava. Kusa lava bit wa over leons fulu fie ingo sang ngin sila what we love Samoa. Almenga lo ke fa kai ek mnge va mo. Ia ma fo ngale male keimi fo ngale ke fen skakala. Isi mbisi ofisi se me lava ke fi no fo ngale le mai nika ka. Fo ngale towards your podcast.
Ia malo whaftai. Ia Fuimaono pe ona o tā ua foi lea o le season tolu nei polokalame lona tolu nei a le whaungangana podcast. Ia o le theme la o le polokalame tolu po le season 3 nei. Theme is culture is the medicine. O lona winga. O loo ia I tātou lava le fofo o tātou whaafitauli. Ia po o lo ia I tātou lava le fofo e mawai le soifua maloloina o le mafaufau. So o le aso finagalo I le autū o le polokalame lea le season 3, whamolmole.
Ke loa, Ioana, e seke le makungufi o le the background, ma le philosophy not behind it. But I also listen ko o le podcast, o le whaonga le, it's to build up le ngangana, Samoa, to build up e whau le ngangana. Because that's a really important issue. Culture for Samoa doesn't stand still. It keeps developing. So in my Samoa, the 1950s was a very different Samoa now. If the 2026 So, le binga la o lo kara, isa ke ma kongofi o la o le fonga le title o le ngai podcast e faulinga ngan Samoa, fonga le fau. Because that's what's about. It's you're gonna build up everything. You'll feel like more whether it's ngangana or Samoa or whether it's in health. You have to build it. You have to build it. O le mea konga ia kaula veia. That is the whole excitement of it. Ia fause mea whongale. And you keep building it. Because ele kumau and I like to talk about some of that because there's an old Samoan we're all familiar with e kumau whaavai as suifenga. I really like to challenge that. Because I can't take that as gospel because whaavai will promote as Samoa. To me, it's changing because the changing all the time. O le change o le environment le ka kungofo ai ngai ngusila o le environment lo o kingofo o oenga ki ngai o kilangi o lo kingai Christchurch, so it's different. Lo binga o la kala, it's about it's constantly changing the time, the environment lo fo usule kau mo le sama ngai kimu malu ngai, so there's time o le fa so back to my point le fa to me it's about time we need to relook le fa Samoa. You know, but for instance, one of the you know, and to me, as a health professional, if we are a health professional, we have to constantly, you've got to constantly ask the question, inquiring, why is this done? Why? To move it on. Ilawa challenge mele whapea Samoa is whawhai ile kua. Actually, that only came through after it became independent in 1962. Prior to that, you know, Samoa, and it's a real big challenge to all of us. What we're talking about, whawhai ile Christian God. But we know the history of Samoa, ye kaku titles, goes back hundreds and thousands of years. So the wha'availa o Samoa, it's not just built on Christian. Yes, we are all Christian, but it's also built easy for beliefs and values. And that's the same as in health. So it's a long, I'm sorry, it's a long way to say that, but that's what I believe. The question is the medicine, the culture is the medicine. Because, and this is always, this has been my lifelong thing, because I challenge a lot of things. And I just want to bring in the conversation, why I did the Fonofale, because that's one of the questions, to answer your question. When I first started nursing training, because the auala training is a psychiatric nurse.
Okay.
Psychiatric RPN, registered psychiatric nurse. So I trained at Oakley County. It started in 1970-71. The first, and then I didn't quite like, they said health, the definition of health, was based on the World Health Organization definition. You know, health is a complete state of mental, physical, so you know the one. And it was nice. And I asked the question is, I always remember the matron said, what do you mean by that? Well, where is muamua? Family is it's a fundamental for me. So it's under social. Because to me, social has a different context. And if I may, social, it's I understand. Family is under social. So from there, I always challenge. See, you and I, we went to school. But so there's a different worldview. Samoa. And for me, so for me, what's the exciting thing? There's always that tension. The tension between what's Samoa and and one of them was how they see health. And I just want to go back to medicine or the culture. culture is because health is a culturally defined term. Pero, and a lot of parangi, look in kili. Lau parangi, you Samoan, excuse you also define health as culture. You define health as, from your cultural perspective. You use languaging as that. Culture is your medicine. I'd like to give an example of that. When I was involved in the research project, Debbie Ryan, Margaret Southwick, and Tim Kennelly, it was about primary health for Pacific. Wawlanga leading focus groups in Christchurch. The facility King Samoa. First of all, it's in English. What's your view of health? As Karl, for me, when you're cold, when you get the flu, and you're sick, same question, but soifua malolo, oh yeah. Oka, yanga kele o makainga o whaalavelave ia makaaro roku makuwafu e kare si kele. So immediately tells me to answer that question. Culture has a major view. When you ask a Samoan, she comes from but also the view of soifua maloloina. It's more a wellness, whereas health, as is defined, and more so with the medical model, is more disease. As we know, and more reductionist.
Yeah.
That's, I'm sorry to but so go back to your question. Excites me. You see, that's the whole thing, Joanna. Your question excites me.
Yeah.
And this I hate these boring questions.
Le sa ole leia le lo finagalo. O le winga o walaina o maile polokalame le faungangana ma identify le theme le. O na ole season 1. Le na amatai le podcast nga o clinician nga makokalanoa Samoa nga makokalanoa about the symptoms o aunga o mafuanga me fapenga kusa it was purely clinicians ile season 1 o my lord season 2 le kwa umaku last year nga shift my lord le focus nga I le kako akungu so le mela le na awaia ia le au faito fale atunu le na nga contribute mai I le whamakalainga o different practices o le o kako kumaleanga ngu e le ngana o le whamakai o le tautua ai tau malele o le whaaleanganga nga iai man meanga kusa the main theme nga come out o le talanoaga lea Fuimaono o lo o ia tātou lava le peiona e saunoa o le e tāua tele le tatou tū ma le aganu'u. Different practices to tono le tatou aganu'u. E au maia le soifua to'ofi le mu o le mafaufau. O le mea lana le ua decided ai loa. Let's explore this further. Le culture is medicine. E sao le le ia malo lava I lo finagalo e sao le le tāua o le tatou tū ma le aganu'u.
Well, Your Honor, the thing, what I try for if I saw, culture doesn't sit outside. Culture and clinical goes like this. You can't, if you go back, that's one of the reasons to go back to the Fonofale. I mean, I'm sorry. To me, the Fonofale is dated. I mean, I developed in the 1980s. But now people use it. And I think the reason is because now people can look at ole newasui. The whole thing about the success of Fonofale is because people like you and others took one look at it from, I can do something with that. So the most important thing about le Fonofale, o le kangakale viewinga le model.
Yeah.
Because o ko kele skanfa why ke pipelo yikende o le molify. But that's one of the reasons why I used it, because it answers a question there. Culture is the medicine. Because it's not only the treatment, but the support or the everything comes together. Because it's not just culture. If people ask me, so the mental health, what is the most important? Because I know the student on the post has got mental. But the student I love most is the student that says, oi, ole Samoa, or let's say for my all the time, or let's say for my also sexuality, or let's say for my physical well-being. And they're all correct. It's not just see ole whapalangi what divide umame is au kako ele mawhainga the mental health whaongale o whaongalo kangaka, it's all part and parcel of the totality o totality o kangaka e ke le mawhainga kango separate whape and that's my belief way back in the 80s and it still is today. So it's really a belief that people are complex. To lower to cut them into pieces. You can't do that. It's actually culturally offensive to cut people up like that.
Yeah. Sa ole le ala sa noanga. E pela le ole autova autanga o le tatu atunu i le soifua maloloina. Pela le e aluatu o le tinga le ulu.
Yoi.
Ia, ele fa mawhainga kilo a po le almele ki ngā ile ulu. Ia kako wai a Samoa, mo le Pasifika, e kilo a koa po le alma fuanga o le ki ngā le ulu. Wa le alanga sau I fa me o le ki ngā le ulu, ele no po le si, e si mafuanga le alenga ngā le ulu o kangaka.
E sau le leia, no, e sau le leia le mea. O ke le loa sa ka whapema, oh, you know, but it's a challenge for yakakonge clinicians, nurses and doctors. I mean, we've got to accept the fact we're colonized.
Yeah.
We are, because my view of this, whether you are a tausi soifua or a formai or social worker that was trained in the institution, palangi, it's your major focus is finding your way back home, your way back to your situanga, where you came from. Like I lived in New Zealand, I always go back to Samoa, more communities, because that is the medicine for me. It's back to my own people. So that's a roundabout answer to your culture is the medicine.
Yeah, malo whaftai. So since we are on culture, Fuimaono. So I say ala ka ua ile ka ko tu male aganu'u. E malama ai, e wha malama ai le mental health mo ka ko kangaka.
Because it's a pride. You know, what I learned, and I learned that when I was teaching Mesas Samoa. Samoa, whether they're undergraduate or postgraduate. If I look at so pongo oe, nga ese ke lea ka mai por ko ahinga. Ki lea ka mai oe, nenga a le pasi, ke alunga ka mai oe lungo le tanga spasi. Wai le pasi wa ki pa ye le poloking amalo ka mamalo ko ai la so fonga le fefenga ke lo le vave nga sui o le ami o kankan nge le vave o ke le lope wa fefen ke o ke fonga Steven Stalin po me le ka sa transpa fi le pasi po le po la o ke lo le leer me sa o ka ka inga o ke se le inga. It's because it gives you a sense of pride. You know, Joanna, there are two me personally, non-negotiable. It's quite non-negotiable. First of all, being Samoan, Malesiku or Ulfafafinge. I can't do that. You can change everything about your Endemann suyen menga. And that's part of that question, go back, because those two things, I came from. Like I see my name's coming up, and I know each time I look at that name, it's not about me. Fuimaono comes from Salangi, it goes back 1,500 years. Karl is after Karl David, who's my godfather. It's different spelling. Pulotu sama malai malu falealili, or grandfather, or grandmother, or Fonofale. So an Endemann, so to me, it's because I represent those people, not me individual. So I'm an individual in amongst the collective of that's what makes me who I am. It's okay, they faces because I come from that kind of background. Now, some people might say, I'm very proud of the fact that I come from that. I'm very proud of the fact that we came to New Zealand and like all other Samoans, we had to start from afresh. But that's what gives you a sense of pride. If like I think you were a part of the students, one of the first exercises I've been doing for nearly 40 years now. Or the first question is you had to stand up, faile greetings you come from, and then say Oloingoa, and then write your name. In 2 minutes you talk to your name. The mix of Maya and and then you find a lot of them realize they're not just themselves. It's independent. It's the me, myself, and I. But it's about us. It's about us. It's about the collective. And all those other things come from that, Joanna. It's very glib for clinicians to use a lot of alanga upu Samoa. And as a theoretical. Now, for instance, I get really sick and tired of hearing people saying, Elo ele la po kama ila le wingol mele ke oki la va la fa la ko ku ki le mafai yo foi la wo e make sure la ke le ku pe fa lo ki pe e ka ku fa le fo nga le me ka ka si pe those are the issue if it's because all those people, those things, they're practice. It's not just theory; they're theory and practice. Samoa, le practice kwasa wele the theory.
E sa ole leila o fionga. Walanga sa e ka ki whaalonga ia i o ile ngaluenga ia ma mea fo i e o i mo meo conference a. Mo le whaonga inga o upu Samoa ma alanga upu. Ia a taimi fo ngale la e whaalonga ko le kau ia i skemi whaalonga.
And that's to say, no, because go back to the context. I was reading an article of, it was just quite a prominent, I'm going to get this is a bloody, but let's just say, like for my, no, but Karl, she's a very good clinician. It's not you, somebody else. It's just for my, it's a fongale, if a four level, it was, her comment was to do with prevention. So, but the example she gave me, and then I thought, well, it's a say. Because my own practice, when I was a kid, grandmother fight. Ole ka fa lisi kula. I was sasa kama kicking out ole kama kelele for mele ole. We lo vai ko ole aramea. In other words, a real good prevention is the person that said, don't go in that part or Ku to me, it's not a prevention. Once you stand on the olala but none of the thing is, it's not to kuielevai. Okay, I always remember my auntie said, she didn't mix with but she was right. So, in other words, the context of Ulmelo Fanga, but they don't know the context of Mele, so Ulmelo Lalomea.
Usala e ka ua ia le makua malama le ngangana. Le whaonga inga o le ngangana. Ia malonga whesoka inga male culture. Ina ia o whaatasi ai le whaonga o le ngangana male culture. E momori ai le whiaula le ia tātou le mental health. Talwaila o yo ara pioneer. Whatever foina e practice le mental health. O le mental health Samoa muamua I tono nei atunu. O le a le winga o le mental health ia oe?
O le mental health really it's a soifua maloloina. It's really about soifua maloloina. It's when your soifua maloloina is affected. Ola whakukusa le pol mamelo o ngei whaunga le malioka le Dr. Lisi Kalisi Pekai, and actually feeling kakunga lui whakasi Samoa. E pei ol mele ole what we call la sanga it's orange and green. And bete se afoi. Se it's like a twine. It's twined together. The green represents the wellness. The orange is that when you're becoming anxious and anxiety, and then the red is it's the illness. Wellness, anxiety, and illness, they're all part and parcel of life. We don't contribute mele or wellness is wellness. Well, you can't. Because not anybody. This morning when you get up in the morning, you weren't all well for you know, you're always a little bit dozy and so you're not fully well. It's only after you've had some breakfast or something, then you start to pick up or have your coffee and things. So in the period of hour, you actually shift each time. So to me, mental health is part and parcel of soifua maloloina. It's part and parcel of it. When you're well and when you're not so well and illness, that's all part of being a soifua maloloina. It's not oh, you know, wellness is out there and illness is the other. It's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's part and parcel. Does that answer your question?
Well, before I mention the definition of the World Health Organization, for mental health, health, which is a tutusa, while I mention me ko le individual, ka ko la pela ona maliela usau no le definition of the mental health There's a whole lot of information na au mai describe mai le mental health that's a wola le World Health Organization. E pe lai sau sa o le lola o ka ko e kele ia description. E kele me complex le ka ko o ka ngaka Samoa ma ka ko si o manga. That's all part of wellness.
Yes. Yes. Ana ke lo le si la fa kukusa it's no mo pala fa oh it's so sad. If mo maliu Samoa, oh so sad. Apart from se pawale me ki eso ke fiwai me wo fo ngalo mo maliu Samoa o me o fo ngalo you know of se mo fo yo ku molimau o le star ka le lo lava be wala ku fo ngale fi lo e algo como le o fai but the point I'm saying that emotion ya ka kongi wala parang only few people for syllabus only few au kako samo fa pe fi e selema yo le mal di fa what you mean this is my kilo kanga ngok me kilo me ai fa pe what you mean kilo me fa le lo pe ai ko me ai la ngok but my point is pe e fo ngale manga e se fo ngal fa sam pa ko ke kanga ka fo ngalai lo ai ai nga fo ngale alofangia well, I also went to another one. Well, in this case, it was the Afghasi. The first ngale la mango for Malaysia ko ai. Afisi melo atuma te fe kelil kupe ai. Ia la lisi iba ingis.
Kau le ingis.
So ye ngai la bo ma kieng la ba ai. Ike iba ingis ka ngaka ia auala le we fo kupe ai de ka we fangi. It's Samoa. Me konga ngai fonga me lesi foi ku fa Samoa e ke ai loanga ile fa Samoa ya ke you know how I put it very simply ya ke fa Samoa fa to me the first F-A-A F to me first of all is fa'aloalo. If you aren't respectful to people, you haven't got respect for yourself, you've got respect. Fa'aloalo. The first A to me, ole alofa. Ale lofa, everything doesn't work. Pe ole, yes. And the other A is ole ainga, aganu'u. Well, and so all those A's, it belongs to the fa'a, ole alofa, ainga, aganu'u. ia ma le akua. Because atua those to me is, and it's going to be a very interesting, Johanna, because o le akua is ka le o vai kunei, but wa akua more things. You know, they become like parangi for ngale material things. But when more kuliara ko wile, you know, ka vale, nice houses, imea, more things. But those are there, but wa kuanga wa rikide le mafaufau. But they can't be very simply, le lofa ma le aganu'u ia ma kausi ainga.
Yeah.
But
Is that
always
say-
whaalualu. Whaalualu is always
Ko sala Fuimaono lena e ta ua le Fonofale Model lenga e creatinga. Le mai lo experience i le longa lue ai i le mental health. O le lawa umana e saunoa le mafuanga na e creating ai le model la lea. Se e whai asina o tala popo mo i lata wele o malamalama po le le model lea, le Fonofale Model, whamon mole.
Well, the first driving force about that, if the melo definition of health, because if it didn't fit the world health, so ngov ayak lore o le fale, Samoan fale, because ngov wolo mat with Samoa, if early life, I frali umo me you can have over ye. But the other driving force, it was also true thing because ole ngoa kinga. Or grandmother kinga o kinga nga kosia wa ngolo mai grandparents o fonofale lale ngole o makua o kala anga o le name I fonga la afangi fonga ngu isa e fonga le flali la so e le pu e fonga le amanga o fonga la o kanfa pe e le la fonga ko inga lunga fa e lo pol malai la lo paolo fonga la au e pe kongo le fali o kem konga la fonga ko inga ko kongo le fali kongo le fale e fanga ulo il pepe e aku for my o pepe o le kengi le pepe ngai fa ngo lo la I think it was my great grandfather but le great aunt so afa nga ni me ko lo makua e commemorate le fonga ko in kongo le fale her name was Fono Ifale so it was shortened to Fonofale that's the name but it's really important. Ko kelo Samoa to this day, they still from my se ka le ngame o fono fale, nga le fale fono because life up there on fale fono le ai. It's to commemorate a event. O le fanga ungo grandmother she's a life fongo ko inge kongo fale. But the reason why I use the Samoan house is because, or Samoa, Melisime, ke masang me Samoa, mo pau. Ngal pau me se se ai. O le bai fa pau, me nga se se, before I always confused with the Maori whare te pawha. But we all know, I'm not very good at drawing. Those, the Fonofale, I got somebody to draw it for me. But it was just a post. So instead of having many posts, more polokalame, I just put the fourth post as other. So there's the other, it's gender, social, economic, sexuality. And then I thought there was other things. It wasn't just that. That's fundamental to that. If ngale mo po o le ainga is whaavai o o malosi po o le history mo me uma le o ngale Samoa is o whaavai la ainga. Or your family, because in the ngale le I le whaavai o le fale. Ngai ye o po le floor le fale. I le foundation. That's why I put there as family. O le malpo le roof o le fale, it's a culture. The culture for to God, it keeps the rain and all the other elements, it protects the family. So there's a number of history. And then le fale, in mele environment, time, and context. Because it's sui. Because anything I believe is a dynamic model. It means it keeps changing and being adapted. But what excites me is that many people, I developed it for undergraduate nurses in Palmerston when I was teaching nurses. But the people that now uses it are not only researchers, but people are MSD. Education is a big even treasury. But the one that excites me most is the ainga families and schools. And also artists, that's the other more. All those young artists, they're using it as a foundation for their work. To me, it's a very simple thing, but as I said, developing in 1980, 85. But the other influences on the model, it was because of all the other things that's coming. The HIV/AIDS came, homosexual law reform, women's rights were in same time. Also the Dawn Raids. Remember the Dawn Raids was in the 70s, 70, 71. Well, I started my nursing training in 1971. So there's a lot of other political influence. That's what I mean by context and time.
So how do you see so why is the Fonofale model important in mental health for our Samoan people?
Because I see myself in it. But it's not just Samoan, Joanna. The biggest supporter for the model that made it famous weren't nurses or more community support workers. And there were three of them. One is still alive, o Malianga Eric, she's on Iwe, o Lesi, o si o Makua Kongo Petitevi. Yeah, and to some extent, according to Mansuki from the Cook Island, but the Rua of Kawa, or the Konga Malay, because they saw themselves in it. And that's what told me that this model, because I also tested it nationally with different cultural groups. Different, no, we believe that's the main thing. It's family, culture, and my posts. I didn't verify it, they did. So the model is Samoa. When you look at Samoa, but a lot of other people saw it. And now I see Palangi use it. Like some of the indigenous people from Australia, they do it. In America, they also use it. But that's what it's for. It's to put it out. But the philosophy behind the model is for people to make a positive difference in their lives. It's not just it's everybody. And it's not just mental health, Joanna.
Yeah.
Because education, education uses it for teaching that students. And so, I guess I developed it for Ungalele. I would, Joanna, it makes it that I was that smart. I wasn't. I just put it out there, and it was people who made it. It's not me.
So why we are lo finagalo mental health. Not so much kako ia Samoa le kau ke loa le culture ma kako kirkilo kui kako kangaka kau ke okomekia le ke ke loa mo le ba fe lo ai ma me fa pena ai o ke loa o le kaidinga o le non Samoan clinicians pe foi la o teachers po o ile si vaega le faungaina ia o ia la practice it's a really good framework.
Yes.
E kai dai ia le practice a kangaka le understand ia kako.
Yes.
Wala le kangaka whapeol palangi ma le kangaka le seunga culture kako Samoa. Ala kula le ngase o Samoa. Kusala o le model le Fonofale Model. Kilo ia ngai lo le ala ia o ia le whapeo la o focus le kangaka lea. Walanga o kangaka lea. A kilo le model. Ia o le ainga, o langa ngaluenga, ia malunga o langa culture. Ia what are the practice o le culture o lea lenga cause le stress. Is going me whapenga or let's see migration. Whapeo le wa migrate mai ngengi usila, wa leave le ainga Samoa, maybe o le sau I o le struggle le suese ngaluenga or something like that. Like cause le stress. So that's how I used le Fonofale Model. I think it's more o le kaidinga o le au whaingaluenga. Inga ia makua holistic le look after inga o kako kangaka. Ia mai o ia uma mea uma inga ia alu le kako kangaka wa foi. Ala wa umanga ave support worker. Ave le fo mea lue le wins. Ia ave le support. E su ele ngaluenga. the whole thing. Ele
That's right.
whapenga le la kuava I el fuala au. Maybe it go back in the theme for today, culture is medicine. If you understand our culture, you will
Yes.
look after our people well. So I think ole theme nga ole kakalangoanga ngai, which is e makua slot I neima highlight your principles ole Fonofale Model.
So, Maria, Johan, that is the philosophy behind it. Let's say, cool. I mentioned more comedy, more dances. I was very interested in how. Well, I know people in health. Our Karl was beautifully. We said, well, most of us are New Zealand born. And when we see the culture, well, I see where do I fit in because I'm brought up in Palang, but you want to learn about the culture. So, well, if the Samoa culture, you start off because you didn't know. Now you're moving on, and they got involved in you know those dance groups. But what it is the using the family as the kids. So they're using it for themselves as an identity. Because they're finding their identity. Si o ka ko ngai Samoa, we understand the differences. But pe ya o fali, I Samoa ngi, wala ko yang fali fa pela fo o kire fa palangi fo ngale. But you see that's because we were colonized. But it's very interesting but the concept is Samoan, but it's also changing. It's also fo ngale wasui. I think we also is a challenge to us Samoans. It's what is exactly for Samoa? What is it? Is it because but there's also they just work in Samoa, but they're living authentically as Samoans. What I'm saying is in the culture of as is in the Fonofale, there is a contours. There's some people who start their lives as Palang and they end up being Samoan. One of my sister went to Samoa, she learned to speak Samoan, but she grew up in New Zealand. Others in Australia, they wanted to learn about the culture. So it's also about looking up within ourselves. We can't assume to take that you and I know because we can, but a lot of them, they don't know. The other thing about that is how, I just want to go back to the philosophy or the whauangana. One of the things I really love is, more transliteration. Well, but that's part of the change. But I quite like the new one, which is upenga tafa ilangi. It's a beautiful word, like upenga, the net, throwing out. But what is internet? It's just internet. But yeah, the Wi-Fi for the internet. Well, listen, I think that's a lovely. It's a developing, and that's what it should be, Joanna.
Yeah.
I think that in this podcast, to me, is the future.
Yeah.
For here and the future, because that's what makes a culture. It's that attitude that and maybe some of our clinicians. We got to learn about the research methodology. We got to learn the methods. There's also the Samoa. We need to develop this. They should be on par. Not one because on middle of what clinical but I think it needs to be up there. Samoa.
Yeah.
I always remember o konga mai fafo o la fiu Fuimaono. It's a really slangy kind of because we were there as in those days when we were there for as volunteer for the tsunami. Whaupunga, pe o mako, ye hola I o malkonga o ngā, a mako o Samoa. O la mea ko, alea mai o mako ngai Samoa. So I think there's a real challenge both for Samoans,
Yeah.
the Samoans to develop the whangalangangana, but also the more values and belief of Samoa, and really look at me kong lava. I love the le ke look poppy, look kakoliko. I love the new
Pope.
Archbishop Fonofale Model. But I love what he said. He said, "Ale lofa le se akua," and I absolutely agree with that because akua is about love.
O te lo fo i ole foundation fo inga ole ka ko culture ka tatou fa Samoa ole alofa fa vai uma lunga ole alofa e langa e fa alo lo alofa ia on me fo langa le kam fa e ka ko la ia Samoa le fa inga wenga ko mental health, especially mental health. Ia ole kam fa le walanga le ilo e palalangi mai si vaenga. Ia ka ko kuma le ngu okay lo la ia ol ngaluenga nga o ol ngaluenga nga ia ka ko uma le fa ngaluenga ko mental health ol kam fa le promote le ka ko culture le la fo ila e auala ku fo ila lunga ole ka fa talanoaga lenei aso ia o auala ia e promote ai fo inga le peila nga develop e lo fionga le Fonofale Model kusala o se moro piko siling ka ua foi lea walanga ele iloa iska ngaka ia le kakoku ma le angangu e manga ia e lima ka inga le kea le kea i kokongo o le health. Tai lava I lau whaafonga mai. O le awha watu le talanoaga ma Fuimaono I le tatou polokalame o le aso mai. A tono ua iei se au ngā o whamatalanga sa talanoaina mo o e male ainga. Mo nisi whamatalanga, peso o taiane I le whaunga ngana website. Po le te whatuora, po le Health New Zealand website. O lau GP, po lau fōma I whale ainga. Po au nanga al Pasifika e la talatane ia te oe. To e wheiloa ai I le isi tatou polokalame o so mai. Manuia ngā luenga o lenei aso, soifua mai a manuia.